You're now enrolled in the School of BlackNegroJitsu. Is it your first day? Don't worry. The master, LeRoiStephon, and his co-instructors, David, Mike, will take it easy on you, rookie. Welcome to the School of BlackNegroJitsu. I'm your host, the master of BlackNegroJitsu, LeRoiStephon. And you are all my disciples. I'm joined by my co-instructors at the School of BlackNegroJitsu. Mike from Mike's MMA Picks, Mike Attard from the Long Island area. He's going to be one of my co-hosts. What's up, Mike? How you doing? Introduce yourself. Tell everybody a little about yourself.
Sure. What's up, Laurent? Welcome. Thank you for having me today, and excited to be here. I just a little bit about myself. I am a lifelong mixed martial arts fan. Took in my first UFC 2. Ordered it on pay-per-view back in the day. First live event was actually Pride Fighting Championships, and I got to take in Strikeforce, multiple UFCs, play on DraftKings, also big boxing fan as well. I was lucky enough to grow up in an era when my pops would take me to my relative's place who had a black box, so I got to watch all of the Tyson fights growing up, and saw Iron Mike back in the day. Play on DraftKings and love martial arts. I'm so glad that there's no off season in this game, and I'm excited to be here with you, Laura and David. Thank you for having me.
And my other co-instructor at the School of BlackNegroJitsu here, David. What's your last name, Dave?
Last name is Marg, just so it's easy for everybody to pronounce.
No.
M-A-R-G.
What's your real last name, though? Marg.
The real last name is Margulis. But we're gonna keep it. Yep. All and right. Just a little bit about myself. I guess I got into mixed martial arts a little bit after boxing. I grew up on Tyson as well. Was a huge Arturo Gatti fan growing up. I kind of got into UFC during the whole Rich Franklin, Wanderlei Silva, Chuck Liddell era, and I've just been a fan ever since. And I'm just, it's an honor to be on this podcast with you two.
And it's an honor to have you. To all my disciples out there, all of my students here at the School of BlackNegroJitsu. This is a general MMA podcast. If you don't know, I host a fantasy MMA podcast where we bring on, me and my co-hosts, Beast Mode Cal and Eric F. We bring on a guest fighter every week, and we break down the UFC cards from a DraftKings perspective and talk analysis, DraftKings, fantasy strategy, and all that kind of stuff. And I've also got Black Market Picks, which is a shortened version of fantasy analysis. Never runs longer than 10 minutes of analysis if you don't want to listen to 30 minutes to an hour of us going on and on about DraftKings. But I'm a huge mixed martial arts fan, always have been since I was a small boy. And I just have been wanting to do, especially since I've expanded my contacts with fighters. I have so many fighters in my Rolodex now. Where I was talking to Frank Trigg on one of my fantasy podcasts and realized, man, we should just have a general MMA podcast where we sit down and talk general MMA talk. And it's not about fantasy. It's not about DraftKings. It's just about cool stuff that's happened in the industry, interesting topics. Just talk about random BS. And I contacted Kyle Steele. I was looking for a platform. It's not good to stand alone in the podcasting industry these days. And I was like, Kyle, can we get on the Loudmouth MMA Network? He said, yeah. So that's where we are now. So big shout out to Kyle Steele and the Loudmouth MMA Network. We are proud to contribute to the overall product over here and at this on this channel, and I'm gonna be hopefully giving you guys some kick-ass content. I know that I've had a lot of good information, or I think kind of groundbreaking information from fighters, whether it be Pearl Gonzalez, I believe whether it be Tom Breeze, or we've been on a lot of occasions the first people to talk with certain fighters on certain topics at a lot of times. And I feel like here at this School of BlackNegroJitsu, we can do some more of that, be very much so more groundbreaking, because we're only going to do the mixed martial arts industry. I hope to bring you guys the stuff that other people don't have, and hope you guys just enjoy the conversation over here, man. That's what it's all about. We're going to do some live shows. I got to kind of fix some things with the bandwidth in my area before we kick it up live, but I'm kind of ready to rock with that. And we're going to have a great time. Before I get into things, I just wanted to give a shout out to my sponsor, ballclubbox.com. Ball Club Box is one of the best sports apparel outfitters online. Absolutely fabulous product. They offer their subscribers monthly gift boxes full of quality licensed sports merchandise that reflects their customers' support for their team. Usually these items only appear at specific stadiums or sports stores, but they intend to make it easier for customers to support their desired franchise without leaving their homes and in some cases state. Club Box meet the needs of customers by offering the same licensed quality items you may purchase from stadiums and sports stores without having to pay high prices. Offered in a 6-item package or Executive Club Box, which offers 10 items of a specific team items, or also the Ball Club Season Pass, which is 3 Executive Club boxes. You pick your 2 or 3 teams, and they package the items and send them to you at a fraction of the cost of what purchasing each item separately will be alone. To give you an idea, the prices here, the club box is $55 for $75 of estimated apparel. The executive club box is $75 for $125 worth of apparel. And the ball club season pass is $150 for 3 executive club boxes worth $125 each. That's $375 worth of product for $150 flat. I think that's the best deal. Ballclubbox.com. Local guy from St. Louis runs it. Timothy, I forget his last name, but go check out Ball Club Box, man. But today we've got a full slate of topics here for you. We're going to be discussing, amongst other things, Mayweather, Meagan Anderson versus Cyborg. We're going to be discussing the Canadian promotion and their allowance of a convicted rapist to fight for their organization. We're also going to be discussing Tim Hague's death, untimely death, not only amongst my co-host here, but I also brought in Bobby Wombacher. We did a full sit-down and talk about sports, or at least combat sports, fighter safety, rules and regulations concerning knockdowns. And we'll get into this Tim Hague situation at the end of the show after I play the interview. And also, Matt Hughes is getting hit by a train. I believe that's all on slate, and whatever else my co-instructors at the School of BlackNegroJitsu would like to talk about today. But just like everybody else in the mixed martial arts world, before we get into anything, we might as well get into Mayweather versus McGregor. It's the biggest news in sports right now. I don't think there's a bigger story. There's going to be a bigger story this summer outside of Mayweather versus McGregor. Big thing. I didn't expect it to kind of come out of nowhere so fast, but it was a rumor. Then it was a strong possibility, and now it is upon us. And I feel like Conor McGregor shouldn't win. There should be no chance in hell he should win. But I think that he might find a way. I think there's really only one way that he can win. That's by knockout. And I think he only gets the knockout probably due to a broken hand from Floyd Mayweather. You know, his hands are extraordinarily brittle. He's had hand injuries throughout the whole of his career that he struggled with. He has to wrap his hands so much that I remember trainer Freddie Roach complaining about how heavily his hands were wrapped. Right now, Conor McGregor is only a plus 375 underdog, while Floyd Mayweather is only a negative 550 favorite. So crazy line there. I read somewhere that McGregor is actually a lesser underdog than Berto, Cotto, and maybe Ortiz as well. So that's just nuts. I mean, I don't know where people are getting that from. I'm going to let you, Mike, go first on McGregor Mayweather. What do you think of this bout? What do you think is the real? What do you think of his sparring partner coming out saying he sucks? Do you think it's a ploy? What do you think's going on here? How do you feel about the whole atmosphere of this thing?
Sure. Well, it's going to be a tremendous payday regardless what happens. I think the real fight that's going to take place is Triple G against Canelo, just a few short weeks after the Mayweather-McGregor fight. But as far as Mayweather-McGregor goes, I don't see how McGregor's skills are going to translate into a boxing ring. He has 0 professional fights and I believe 0 amateur fights. I was listening to the Luke Thomas show yesterday, and he was blown away by how many people were hitting him up on Instagram and Twitter, mentioning and asking if spinning back fists were legal in boxing. I think that's ridiculous. So you can't take the opinions of those folks seriously. As far as the fight goes, I agree with you that McGregor's only shot is if he was able to land one punch and put Mayweather away. I do not see that happening. The line, to me, is way off. I would think that McGregor should be a heavier underdog, and I was expecting the Mayweather line to sit around minus 1,500. I see McGregor getting pieced up round after round after round and getting humiliated, especially in the latter rounds. These 10-ounce gloves, there's a huge difference there. I don't see many people talking about that, but my money would be on Mayweather. I do not see McGregor getting this done. And I honestly think it's a joke.
Dave Margulis, what do you think?
So I'm going to agree with Mike here, right? I think first and foremost, I've kind of been, I know it's been all the news and the hot topic, but I've been trying to kind of steer clear of it. And the reason I say that is because it's become more of a spectacle than anything else. I don't see it being a real boxing fight. It's a way for McGregor to make a lot of money, the biggest payday of his career. It's a way for Mayweather to see a few more $1 million. Let's not say few, but a lot more $1 million. At most, I see McGregor taking 1 or 2 rounds, and that being the first round or two, Mayweather has the tendency to kind of come out, feel his opponent, and then kind of pitch a shutout for the next 9-10 rounds of a fight. I see him winning 10 rounds to 2, 11 rounds to 1, maybe even completely shutting McGregor out. The only time I've ever seen his chin even be tested was Mosley. I think Mosley might have even been on juice at the time when he tested Mayweather's chin. And that was in round 2 of their fight. And after that, Mayweather just put on cruise control. And I see him doing that as well. I'm not going to say that McGregor won't touch him, once or twice, but I don't see him hitting him with much. I see Mayweather just boxing a safe fight from the distance, rolling off that jab, and just 12, 11, or 10 round, just complete, clinic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there are some very important variables here. We are getting a 40-year-old Floyd Mayweather, while we're getting a 28-year-old McGregor has been training hard. I know Nate Diaz is no Floyd Mayweather, but boxing has kind of been his focus for the past year or two. So his boxing should be a lot sharper than it was. He should be a lot quicker and more athletic than Mayweather at this point. And, of course, we know that if Floyd Mayweather had any flaws, even if he hadn't lost much speed or athleticism, his hands are a problem. And the reality of a broken hand affecting his performance is, I think, one of the only factors that can cost him this fight. As although I don't know what chances McGregor has against such a defensive aficionado as McGregor, somebody who doesn't take many chances, who only is just a master counter boxer, doesn't give you many chances to land offense, and is going to be landing offense over what openings you leave. I think that's his only chance, is if Floyd Mayweather becomes one-handed, and then he's rusty or diminished from just age. So I think the possibilities of an upset here are very realistic. We're not getting a 29, 30-year-old Mayweather who's fighting 3 times a year. We're getting a 40-year-old Mayweather who hasn't fought in 2 years, and of course, like the rest of his family member, has brittle hands. So I think that the upset is extraordinarily realistic, and I think, honestly, it happens.
Wow.
Conor McGregor is special. He's a special.
Can I?
Special. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Can I chime in quick? I wanted to also mention something that I haven't heard a lot of folks say, that I think that there's a real possibility that McGregor, since he has a pretty good chin in mixed martial arts, that he absorbs a tremendous amount of punishment, so much so that in the latter rounds this may cost him in delaying his next fight in mixed martial arts. I see it being an issue. He hasn't been. He was lit up by Nate Diaz on the feet in their first fight, and he took some big shots in the second fight. So just imagine what kind of foe he's up against here. This isn't a amateur boxer. This is one of the greatest fighters of all time that he's about to fight against, and I think he's in for a rude awakening. So much so that it could delay his return to UFC if he ever were to come back.
I think, and I forgot I left something out. Now, Conor McGregor, we know what beats that Philly shell and that shoulder roll is high output, high activity, volume, because it's hard to land convincing damage in the eyes of the judges with that style. And Conor McGregor has had cardiovascular issues against Nate Diaz in the 25-minute fight, so...
Yeah, 7 minutes he usually fades out.
Yeah.
Hit the nail right on the head.
I know it's not very realistic, but fuck, I mean, he knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds. As this fight goes on, the probabilities of an upset probably diminish, but I'm assuming that cardio should be his major focus for this fight, because in order to beat Floyd, it's not a matter of just, being a competent boxer. You have to be able to be defensively sound and not leave openings, and you have to be very active in order to steal the rounds, because you're not going to hit him clean a lot. So his style, the style that gives Floyd Mayweather trouble is usually high volume people. And Conor McGregor is like Manny Pacquiao, and I forget the other guy that gave him some trouble, but Conor McGregor is nowhere near that. So I don't see how it happens, but it's Conor McGregor, and he's a special motherfucker. So,
did you guys see the Canelo Mayweather fight?
I did.
What did you think of that? Just to be honest,
I don't remember exactly, but I think Canelo was he was obviously very green and underdeveloped, so wasn't necessarily even that competitive.
Yeah, but I mean, his skill level still is light years ahead of McGregor as far as ringmanship goes. I just wonder how Conor plans on closing the distance. There are only so many unorthodox approaches to getting close to Floyd and shaking him up. This is one thing we also haven't touched upon, is the mind games that are going to be played as we lead up to the fight. Has in your eyes Mayweather been susceptible to any of that gamesmanship?
He's 49-0. Obviously not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that answers that.
I mean, I think his background, he's a little bit too seasoned of a pro to let anything amateurish affect him. He is a consummate professional. he does almost everything right. Like I said, the only fatal flaw, I think, is the brittleness of those hands. And although he may be one of the greatest fighters of all times, it seems as though the God that blessed him with his talent did not bless him with hands able to, carry that talent. So I don't think Floyd Mayweather is a perfect person, so I don't think he'll finish with the perfect record. Moving on, let's talk about Germaine de Randamie vacating her title. Oh man, I don't know how to feel about this. But Cyborg is a 2-time loser with USADA. Although the last time was, I believe that they reduced the suspension, or else they threw it out because they found that her excuse was legitimate. But nonetheless, if I were a combat sports athlete, it seems as though Mark Hunt had a big gripe with Brock Lesnar about fighting him on the juice. Cyborg is a 2-time loser. Should Randemie be looked down upon for not wanting to fight somebody who has a history of riding dirty, so to speak? Dave, you go ahead and start this one off here.
So I think as a champion, she's got to take on any decent challenger, right? Mark Hunt's problem with Brock Lesnar, I feel like, was after the fact, not prior to the fact. He did still, in fact, fight Brock Lesnar, lost to him, and kind of went into the whole tirade afterwards. I think there's a lawsuit against the UFC in regards to that as well, something along those lines. I think the whole 145-pound division in the UFC is a bit of a joke. I was looking at the rankings earlier today. I think to be brutally honest, I think she's honestly scared of Cyborg. That's just my opinion. She took that home fight. It seemed like she just wanted to win the 145-pound title, and that was good enough for her. I know that the UFC created this division for Cyborg, but I think, the brass has to kind of, after all this, I think they might have to do some rethinking. I think, right, and to kind of go back and touch base, right, I know that the WME has a huge investment, right, on the UFC, right? It's a $4 billion acquisition. And I know they've got to pay that bill off, right? They're trying to, put out as many fights as possible. And they're doing a lot of these events, but it feels like a lot of these events are watered down. And I think that the smartest idea for the UFC to kind of do now is maybe find catch weights, right? Because this whole 145-pound experiment's a little bit of a dud. It was created for Cyborg, but maybe find some catchweight fights that are actually going to be interesting fights, that are going to be money fights, that are going to be exciting, going to get fans out their seats, and maybe stop churning out so many fights and focus more on quality as opposed to quantity. And I think this just kind of evidences that. Like, I think this just brings that to light, that they've got to do something about the women's division, and I think maybe catchweight might be the way to go, to be brutally honest.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, I gotta say also, Dave, with Lesnar and Hunt, Hunt's gripe was that the pool of testing for USADA, I believe you needed to be in the pool for 4 months before taking a fight, and he got an exemption for that, so he was able to just climb right back in, and Hunt was worried that he was gonna pop, that he was gonna fight someone on steroids, but he said he didn't give a shit. So as far as that goes, I understand where he's coming from. With Cyborg, hell shit, I'd be afraid to fight her too. I mean, have you seen her? She, I know we're gonna get ahead of ourselves. I see her completely destroying Anderson, but when we talk with home. And that situation, I was at that fight in Brooklyn, and the Randemie was throwing illegal shots after the bell, and I didn't see that she really earned the victory there. I know she had the belt, and then to strip it after only 4 months, she didn't do anything egregious. She just said that she wasn't going to fight the number one contender who has been popped. and I don't blame her for that. But who else is she going to fight? And like you said with WME, they're thinking in dollar signs. So, this is a money fight. She probably could have cashed in, but is it worth getting wrecked and tarnishing whatever legacy she had? She's a natural 135er. And another thing to think about is really, what are we going to get out of Cyborg? Is she gonna come down to 145 and look healthy? She denied an initial shot at the belt at 145 because of her inability to make that weight, the 145 pound weight class. So, who does that? We have to think about that.
I don't think the Randemie is a coward. She fought Amanda Nunes. She's taking on all challenges. I think she has a legitimate gripe. It's the same excuse Floyd Mayweather used for Manny Pacquiao for years. So, except this one, Manny Pacquiao never tested positive for anything. Cyborg definitely tested positive on 2 different occasions, which would give one pause, especially when you see her deadlifting 300-something pounds. I'm a big Cyborg fan. Nonetheless, I don't think the Randemie is cowardly. I just think she's proceeding with caution in a dangerous sport. And of course, like you guys mentioned, WME IMG is trying to make as much money as possible as soon as possible. But I wanted to get into an alternative topic today, and that is the fact that I don't think the UFC was worth $4 billion. I don't think any fighting organization is, because of course, the fighters aren't obligated. No fighter is obligated to fight for your organization. That's just a fact. Fighters come, fighters go. Nobody has to fight for you for eternity like in the NFL. If you want to play big-time pro football, you got to play in the NFL. What would possess a corporate ownership group to spend that much money on something that they could have went and bought a lesser organization like ACB, Absolute Combat Berkut, or whatever, or they could have bought the Polish organization KSW, or any of these organizations for exponentially less, maybe some tens of millions of dollars, or even less, a few millions of dollars. What did they really buy? The tape library. The tape libraries to the other organizations that the UFC bought out. I think that's a legitimate thing. Pride Library, but I think those are only worth a couple millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars per thing. Looking for the syndication and the rights on those. I think that I think this was a bad acquisition for that dollar amount. I don't think that they can like get the profits out of it that they thought they would. They act like they're gonna get these exponential. They're gonna increase the business exponentially like it has been increasing over the last 10 years, and I just don't see that. Mike, what do you think?
Well, the whole McGregor saga has it's great for the fighters, but it's bad for the UFC because, like I've heard folks say, fighters are considered independent contractors, right? So there's no union. The cost of paying these fighters is going up. People aren't getting bonuses that they deserve, performance-based bonuses. It's a no-win situation. I don't see how they're able to recoup their losses. And long-term investment, I don't see them getting a return on this. Good point about the Pride Library and Fight Pass. And I like, what is it? WWE has their own channel, their own network, right, Laura?
Exactly.
Do you see them?
They have an extraordinarily extensive tape library where they basically bought the tape libraries from all the regional organizations, but they didn't necessarily spend millions. I think they spent a couple $1 million on the WCW library. They might spend a couple $100,000 to $1 million on the NWA tape library. They've got such an extensive tape library, but that kind of stuff is only worth so much, especially in the depreciating market of DVDs. I mean, you're not selling DVDs like you used to. Basically, you're selling Netflix type subscriptions now. So $4 billion there. I mean, but that's what happens when big time businessmen get into a business like the fight business, which it's not about how much money you have. And we saw that with Ted Turner and WCW. They had all the money in the world. It's about smarts, street smarts, such so to speak, knowledge of the business, knowledge of the game. Vince McMahon outsmarted and he did more than Ted Turner with much less. Ted Turner had Hulk Hogan, he had Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Scott Steiner, Booker T, Eddie Guerrero, so many of the all-time great Chris Jericho, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Ric Flair, so many of the all-time great WWE superstars in the post-Attitude Era, they were WCW products.
And getting back to the UFC, fighters.
My point is that Vince McMahon found out how to outdo Ted Turner and make a better product while spending much less money. And I think WME IMG has made the same mistake. They've spent all the money in the world to buy out this talent, but I mean, they're cutting fighters after 2 fights. So people like Phil Davis, Brian Bader. I mean, Bellator is building a hell of a roster in a very short amount of time. They're starting to look like a really legitimate mixed martial arts product.
I agree with you there.
And it's getting scary because the UFC is only valuing 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and where they should be focusing on cornering the market on young talent. And I don't think this is good fight business. Go ahead, Mike. What were you about to say?
Yep. I was going to say, Dave, I know you want to chime in here. I just wanted to make one quick point that we used to have fighters who would fight strictly for glory, and they would fight. It wasn't about the money. They would fight 2-3 times a night if they had to. And now we're getting savvy fighters who think they're businessmen. They're holding out for fights that they're not going to get, and they're waiting for these big paydays, and it's driving the cost of business up. And we know that WME has deep pockets, but where does the buck stop? There was an outside the lines where Dana White was accused of paying his fighters peanuts, and his counter argument to that was the ESPN boxing fights. People were getting paid only $300-500 per fight. So now the cost of these fighters are going up, their purses, and it all comes back to McGregor and Randy Couture. People throughout the years have tried to stand up for themselves, and Dana's been able to burn them by holding them up in the bureaucracy of the court system, delaying huge fights as far as Fedor and Randy and other people who tried to stand their ground. So it's a no-win situation for the fighters, and I think as fans, we're going to lose in the long run.
I don't think so. I think that the more competition, the better. But if you're going to spend $4 million, at least make sure that you control the whole business. And they have not done a good job at that. They're allowing young organizations to scoop up very talented guys like Albert Tumanov and, oh my God, who else is somebody that they let go that I really, really like? Oh,
Rory McDonald.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is ridiculous, man. Like, you're letting go of guys that people can build around and sell and that have established fan bases. Like, if you're going to be, you're going to spend that much money, you better have cornered the market. And they have not done that. They are not only kind of killing themselves with the Reebok deal, which was absolutely irresponsible. And let's kind of get into that too. I think that's really ignorant. Now, and I'll tell you why. Because these big-time apparel companies are completely impersonal. They don't care about anybody because guess what? Whether you wear Nike or not, whatever athlete you are, or whatever organization you are, millions of people, tens of millions of people around the world will also wear Nike. So it's disturbing to me to see an organization have sold their soul and really cost the fighters, at least a lot of fighters, a whole lot of money for peanuts. I think it was, what, $70 million over 10 years or something like that. How much money did they sign for?
I don't know the exact number.
Okay. It's something small. But the bottom line is, so probably like LeBron James's deal, something that somebody in another sport is making by themselves. And you gave away a whole sport full of combat athletes over that small amount of money, when you could have had Reebok be your apparel outfitter and just had them be the brand of shorts and be the brand of gloves, or whatever equipment you're using, your mats and your gyms, your speed bags and all that stuff. All that could be Reebok stuff. Why did you have to sell the fact that, well, no other sponsors can be on the shorts and stuff like that? I mean, that's too broad. Of no other, you don't see boxing doing that. You know, their fighters have you might see an event sponsored by a certain apparel outfitter, but at the same time, you know, everybody has their individual sponsors as well. They use their own individual gloves or whatever gloves that they've agreed upon for the fight. You don't see people selling their soul for peanuts like the UFC did to try and look like a legitimate sport. They're trying too much to be a big boy instead of just growing into one. You know, it's very irresponsible in them, I think. You don't have to try. All you have to do is mature. And they're not maturing. It seems like they're kind of dying, man. They're driving people away. They're not making people feel like, well, if you sign with the UFC, here's where the big dollars are. And that's what the fight business is all about. It's about making the fighters believe that, hey, if I get with these people, I can make my dreams come true. And this Reebok deal does not seem like a dream. Seems like a nightmare.
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
How did McGregor negotiate with this Mayweather fight that now he gets to choose his own sponsor to wear his shorts? He's negotiating with Nike. He's negotiating with a bunch of other brands. And just imagine the payday that he's going to make on that. He got out of the Reebok deal to do this.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. He's not out of his Reebok deal with the UFC, though. That's going to continue. But for this fight, I assume because it's a Mayweather promotion and because of the Ali Act and other things like that, he's going to be able to be a free agent concerning his sponsorship. And to an extent, that's the way it should be. If a promoter would like to sell the rights to different parts of the fight, the ring, different insignia on the turnbuckles, even the brand of shorts, that would have been smart to have all the gear for the UFC be Reebok gear. That's a good licensing deal. You don't sell the whole fighter's outfit for pennies on the dollar. Come on now. That's completely ignorant. They just so thirsty to look like a legitimate sport, you know, that they just do anything. So, I mean, that's bad business on their part. They're driving talented young fighters away. People are finding that they can make as much money or more in other organizations, and that's what it's all about. Who cares about being in the UFC? If I can go to Bellator, I can get better promotional backing, I can get more money, and I can maybe even fight easier fights. Not to say that Bellator doesn't have a hell of a competition in different divisions. But, the UFC has been trying too hard to look legitimate instead of just being, just allowing themselves to mature, continuously establish a fan base, and grow into a major sport. It takes time. The NBA didn't become the NBA in 10 years. The NFL didn't become the NFL in 10 years. You got to allow yourselves to establish a fan base, to establish nostalgia, and then the money will come. They seem like they're messing up the money and messing up their mark and their brand. I think this Reebok deal has left a bad taste and thought about how they do business in their mind. And I don't think that's good. Dave, you got any chime in on this?
Yeah, so I think you guys both made very, very valid points, right? And I think you saying that them allowing to mature, I think those are the right steps, right? And from my perspective, it looks like the UFC is kind of taking a reverse Darwinism path, right? They went from what was, what John McCain at one point called like human cockfighting, right, to evolving to a real brand, to a real promotion. They got the sponsorship deal. I'm not like they had sponsors. I'm not saying this Reebok sponsorship deal is any good, but it went from an upward trajectory. I think the Fertittas did everything right with the company. They were letting it grow, and I think when WME and it was kind of going towards this trajectory as well. But I think when WME pounced on it, it became so much about, and from my perspective, right, from where I'm looking, my vantage point, it became so much, I feel like, about churning out so much and making as much money as you possibly can, as quick as you can, right? I love watching fights as much as either one of you or the next man, right? But I would forego being able to see a fight night every week if I could get higher quality fights, right? If I got one pay-per-view a month, kind of like they used to do in the past, and get really high quality fights. But I think it's come to the point where the WME wants their investment back, or a return on investment that they're just trying to put out whatever they can. I think prime examples, right, are you are letting guys like Rory go to Bellator, right? You had a budding North American, star in Yair Rodriguez, and any one of us with any chromosomes or anything going on in our brain, right, knew that he was going to get eaten up by Frankie Edgar. That was that was throwing stake in the lion's den for Frankie. Why don't you give him some more tune-up fights, right? Like they're just, I feel like they're just trying to rush everything. I think also, to go back to that, they're no longer able to kind of hold the fighters hostage like they were used to in the past, right? Like, look at this, like Al Iaquinta, when Al Iaquinta was one of the first guys to really go off on one of those rants where they didn't take care of his medical bills after his fight. I just saw a tweet a few days ago from Adam Milstead after he got his knees torn up fighting Curtis Blades. He tweeted saying basically, "Fuck UFC, they're not taking care of my bills. I've got to go out and pay for my knee surgery." I think the fighters are kind of getting still. They're still kind of. It feels like some of them are still getting peanuts, but it feels like they're kind of getting creative. And even though that whole union never really took off, it feels like they're kind of angling certain ways where they might be able to find different ways to make money with the different promotions, right? With the possibility of boxing for some of these guys now. There's rumors that Stipe wants to fight Anthony Joshua. And I guess to also go to that point, does anybody know, I didn't read any of the specifics or anything of that sort, but I remember when Conor was trying to structure this deal to box, right, he wanted UFC involved. Is there any UFC involvement in this fight? Are they getting a piece of this pie for the Mayweather-McGregor fight?
Of course.
Okay,
yeah.
so
I heard it's 50%.
So I mean, that might be, and like I said, is that's to go to that point where I was talking about kind of the reverse evolution, where it's UFC is kind of feeling, it doesn't feel like it's growing, like you said, Laurent. It feels like it's getting very artificial. It feels like it's kind of becoming a circus sideshow. And I know you're a professional wrestling fan, but it feels kind of like the WWE. Like it feels like if someone was a casual look on the outside looking in, they're like, "What the hell is this? Like this isn't real. These aren't guys really going in there and laying, their blood and guts on the line when they actually are," because it's turned into what looks like kind of an artificial production. And maybe that's another way. Maybe WME with these guys contract under there, maybe they can kind of get involved with these boxing promotions. I don't know the logistics of it. Some more UFC guys go into boxing fights and recoup their investment. But I think it's all come at the cost of a good product, a product that was kind of an upward trajectory, which has kind of like, I'm not gonna tune out. I'm still always gonna love UFC and watch the UFC, but it's kind of become a mockery or a joke of itself, in my opinion.
And we have other fighters like Stipe, who's he wants a piece of that pie in boxing too. He's reaching out to Joshua, trying to sell a fight, which, I mean, come on.
I really do think that. Well, I think that's a more realistic win for Stipe than McGregor versus Mayweather. Anthony
Yeah, he
Joshua.
was a Gold Gloves guy.
Oh yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, I think Stipe was a Gold Gloves guy, if I'm not mistaken. I read somewhere.
Well, that Gold Gloves thing is
Yeah, it was like regional. It was like regional, right? Like somewhere in Ohio.
Nonetheless, it's heavyweight, man. And you know, anything can happen in any type of heavyweight fight. It's not about skill so much. It's more about durability or toughness. Stipe's got a decent boxing game. He could. Technically, he has a better chance on paper of upsetting Anthony Joshua than Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. But he's not as electric of a personality. So where is the money going to be at necessarily? We don't know. If McGregor upsets Mayweather, there could be lots of money in these type of crossover promotions. But WME IMG is not doing good business. I remember Jenna Jameson and Tito Ortiz getting into it with Dana White over the insurance and the coverage for fighters about, was that 10 or 15 years ago, and people are still complaining to this day about that whole thing. They're not maturing. They're not making people feel like it'd be good to be a part of the UFC. One thing that I thought should happen is if Reebok is sponsoring you, every fighter should get pairs of boxing gloves, pairs of MMA gloves, some shorts, stuff so they won't have to buy later on in their career. Like
they have a 50% off coupon at the retreat. Did you see that?
I heard about that. That's disgusting. Like they should be getting, like, when you're in the NFL and you're sponsored by, well, they're sponsored by Reebok, you get free cleats, you get free gloves, your jerseys come free and everything like that. Being in the UFC means free what? Means free nothing. So that's kind of my point, is that that's a horribly structured deal. The fighters should, they should all have like all the equipment that they need for the rest of their career, all the basic equipment, sparring headgear, sparring groin protectors, pair or two of gloves. Like, that stuff costs nothing. And to provide the fighters with that stuff, they will feel like legitimate professionals. They feel like they're being used. And that's going to hurt the UFC, because mixed martial arts is more and more becoming a sport that is revolving around electric and eccentric individual personalities. It is no longer just a tournament, and I think that's going to hurt the WME IMG approach in the long run, and could even lead to a disastrous collapse and bankruptcy type of thing. We've got next topic here, Meagan Anderson. I know we just talked about Cyborg. Meagan Anderson versus Cyborg. Do you think this is just a pitiful attempt at a title fight, or do you think Meagan Anderson has a legitimate chance here?
May I say something? I think that Anderson's a little too raw. I think she's got the body type. She needs to develop more. At this juncture, you have Cyborg, who is a wrecking machine. And I'm waiting for this line to open, to be honest. This fight can't get here soon enough. I would parlay this fight up with a lot of other things out there.
Okay, Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think, Meagan Anderson has the body type, but I think she's just still too raw. I mean, Cyborg she's just a wrecking ball. She just seems to just run through anybody who's put in her path. And I know we're not a gambling podcast, but I've got a 25-team open parlay going with about 11 legs down, and I think Cyborg is getting added to that once that line opens up.
Okay. Next topic here, we've got a convicted rapist that just headlined a card in Toronto. I thought this was very interesting. And I wanted to ask you guys, if you were a promoter, how would you handle this situation? Todd Stoute was convicted as a 22-year-old. Yeah, well, this is 13 years ago. Him and his, I was thinking that maybe it was one of those rape type cases where it's like he said, she said, give him the BOD, the old benefit of the doubt. No, this was absolutely heinous. This was absolutely heinous. Let me read it to you. The two men were looking for a prostitute. They picked up a 17-year-old prostitute with the intention of paying for her services and later stealing that money back. Once the sex worker was aware that her purse was missing, she was attacked by the two men. Stoute, who had already had sex with her, drove the van to Scarborough while his friend raped her in the back. They later proceeded to throw the badly beaten teenage sex worker in a dumpster without purse or cell phone. They eventually connected Stoute to the attack by DNA evidence, and the break in the case came when DNA collected under the fingernails of the prostitute matched an unrelated robbery conviction from Stoute a month prior. He pleaded guilty in 2006, was sentenced to two years and a shortened sentence for his compliance with the case. He's taken up MMA since 2009. And he has a 9-3 record since then. The promoter seems to love him. The community seems to love him. If you were a promoter, would you let him fight for your promotion? Mike, what do you think?
He won his fight, right? I looked and he won that fight. Man, my God, two years. 2 years for that. There was no question about what happened here, and the guy didn't even fight it. He admitted that this all took place, and they knocked her unconscious. They raped her. They put her in a dumpster. They stole her purse. She could have and should have passed away. I would have a big problem with that. I know Mike Tyson was convicted of rape. It was very, very different story if you look at the details. If you want to get into those, I can. But even though it's been 13 years, I mean, look at how hard Greg Hardy's having a tough time finding a gym, right? Man,
is he having a hard time finding a gym?
Who is he training with?
I don't know. I heard he was interested. But, I mean, I don't know. You know how much of a commitment, like, people talk about being a boxer or mixed martial artist, but that is a different level of commitment than playing football or basketball or anything. That's real hard work. So maybe he was interested a couple months ago when he was in the gym rolling around, but actually preparing for a fight means getting up every morning, running 4 to 6 miles, going in to the gym, doing your sparring, doing your technique work, Who wants to do that every day? So I don't know how serious he is about it anymore. But anyway, let me get to.
I wouldn't touch him with the 10-foot pole. This guy Stoute.
Okay, Dave, what do you think?
I seem to be agreeing a lot with Mike tonight, but I agree. Like I'm happy you let off for him too, because you towed a fine line, and I'm all for somebody trying to rebuild their life after they quote unquote made a mistake, but that's just disgusting. That's unacceptable, right? You should never put your hands on a woman, let alone you and someone else, rape her, kidnap her, leave her in a dumpster and leave her for dead. Like that's just, I mean, morally, if I'm running a promotion, I'm more Mike here. I don't touch him with a 10-foot pole. Like I don't go near the guy. That's just toxic. And that's just that's like an awful human. It's like, I don't know. That's just somewhere deep embedded in there. I feel like there's an awful human being. So I don't know. That's all I got to say about that.
Last but not least, the Master of BlackNegroJitsu. The co-instructors have spoken, but I am going to differ here. I feel like the fight business is a place where that's forgiven. And the past is the past. You could be a rapist. You could be a murderer. You could be whatever in the past. But as long as you can fight right now, you're welcome to do that. And the martial arts are an excellent humanizing force in
rehabilitating life. Force?
Exactly. Thank you, Mike. An excellent rehabilitating factor in that the humility, discipline, respect, and dignity that is learned from practicing the said martial arts not only familiarizes one with the fragility of their of other people's humanity, but also their own. So that was 13 years ago. The man has not only found the hearts of his boss, the promoter, but the community. Why can't the past be the past? I think that it's terrible, but this isn't a corporation. This is not a business. This is the fight business. And it's the place where all people are welcome to come and get back on their feet and possibly obtain greatness and glory. The only thing
just imagine, just imagine. I mean, what more could you do to become a heel than that? Honestly,
but that's the past. Now, in the present, he seems like he's turned his life around and has found a good thing that he's doing in life. Why would you try and take away something in the present for something somebody did in the past? I don't understand. The world, I think, is overall a cruel and despicable place. And it was a despicable action where you don't look at it and say, well, maybe he didn't mean no harm. It definitely was pretty terrible. But being realistic, people love to abuse prostitutes. It is a disgusting manner of the human, at least the male human character, I guess, is that when people, especially sex workers that are vulnerable, people take advantage of them, beat them up and stuff like this. This isn't abnormal. But the fact of the matter is that he was caught for it. It's something that people in society love to do, is pick on the people, bums, prostitutes, and people like this. I don't think it's unheard of at all. In fact, anybody that works in the police forces and stuff would tell you about the dangers of prostitution and the beatings and things that they take. But like I said, I know it was a horrible act, but I think that, like I said, the fight business is a place where people are supposed to be able to restructure themselves, to become disciplined, to refocus and get a new lease on life. And I don't think that there's any crime outside of maybe some horrible child murder or something like that. I think that's about the only thing that could possibly keep people from paying for your fight. But I think that otherwise, I think everything is pretty much fair game. We've seen people catch rape convictions, murder convictions, probably worse. Don King was a convicted murderer and made a hell of a living off boxing. So I think if people turn their lives around and they can do something positive with it, and why would you obstruct that and cast people into hopelessness where maybe they think that's what they are, is the past. People found something in the present to do. Let them do it, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, the other thing is we're talking about a 17-year-old here. We're not even talking about a grown adult, the victim.
True, but he was what,
22, I believe?
Same age range. And this is the kind of action that you see, but this is what young men do oftentimes. It's ignorant, but people mature, they grow. I think that especially with young men, those are the most violent and impulsive members of our society. Is your 12 to 22-year-olds or 25-year-olds. That's where all the murders and the rapes and stuff occur. So if people found a new lease on life past that savage, I remember I had a high school football teammate of mine, police officer, killed by a young kid. He's about 13 years old. If that young man were to find a positive lease on life, why would you stop him over something that happened in his in a typically savage part of many young men's lives? I know that no corporation or no legitimate business in the world would probably have a person like that. You probably have to be self-employed or work in certain manual labor places. But in the fight business, I think everybody is welcome to get a new lease on life and try and get back on their feet. I don't think that it's ever been anything to say, no, you're too heinous of a person to come fight in a cage. If there is, I think if you stop letting people fight in a cage, then there's really no hope in life for reformation or anything like that, you know? Where can you go after you do something terrible, which any of us could do? There will, by the grace of God, go all of us. But I guess it's 2-1, so maybe I'll lose. But I just thought that was an interesting topic. Right now, though, what I want to do is I had a very interesting interview with referee Bobby Wombacher, and I wanted to go ahead and play that right now. We talked in the light, if you didn't know, Tim Hague died this weekend due to injuries suffered in a boxing match. He was basically, if you watch the video, beaten to death. And he was an experienced mixed martial artist, 21-13. Only 1-2 as a boxer. Nonetheless, 8 TKOs, I believe, in his boxing career. This was a heavyweight fight. And oddly enough, the 3 knockdown rule was not in effect. So I wanted to go ahead and I wanted to get into this Bobby Wombacher interview. And I wanted to go ahead and it's very interesting. We talk about fighter safety. What went wrong? What would he do if he were the ref in this fight? And did he think that there need to be any changes in the policies of the commission up there in Edmonton? Or what? So go ahead and listen to this interview clip here. It's very interesting. Me and UFC, Bellator, and Victor referee Bobby Wombacher going over the whole Tim Hague situation. And it's about 30 minutes. After it gets done, I know this is a pretty long podcast. This is our first one, though, so we're going to be doing everything here. We're going to come back, and then we're going to finish up the show here. So go ahead, me, Bobby Wombacher, School of BlackNegroJitsu, Episode 1, first interview ever. Check it out. Bobby Wombacher, welcome to the School of BlackNegroJitsu, and today we're going to be discussing, probably above all else, fighter safety, and in the light of the Tim Hague situation that took place this past weekend in his fight with Adam Braidwood in Canada. But we're also just going to be discussing you. So before we get into the hot topic, Bobby, tell us a little bit about your background as a referee. Have you only done mixed martial arts? Have you done boxing? Have you ever been a participant in combat sports? Where you from? Give us all the general info here. Run it down for us.
All right. Well, first off, I was born and raised in Taylorville, Illinois. Left after high school and kind of traveled all over. And currently, I'm staying in the Decatur, Illinois area. And actually, this week, I'm moving back to Salt Lake City, which is where my kids are. And I actually have an event there this weekend. So I travel many weekends a year. And I'm licensed. I've refed licensed in 25 different states. So, this weekend I'm in Salt Lake. Next weekend I'm in Tennessee. So, I'm all over.
And go ahead. My fault. I'm sorry.
As far as my background goes, just like everybody else, I watched mixed martial arts and thought, man, I can do that, and just kept watching, and then. My company had moved me to Salt Lake City, and my family, I was married at the time, didn't join me for 6 months. So I went down to Jeremy Horn's gym, started training there. And then I had a cyst on my left shoulder blade that had to be removed, and it got infected. And so they said I couldn't grapple or anything for 6 months. So I thought to myself I had to figure out a way to stay involved in the sport, and I turned to reffing. Within a few weeks, I flew out to Pasadena and attended Herb Dean's course, and the rest is history. I've been doing it for a little over 5 years.
Okay, very interesting. Now, are you a full-time ref, or does that exist? Can you make a good living as a referee? Do you have any sponsorships that you can pull, or how does that whole thing work? What is the average professional referee make for UFC, Bellator type event, professional Invicta, these big time events? And what do you make for the smaller events, or is it all the same standard type of salary where the state kind of sets a standard price for what they got to pay you guys?
Sure. For the most part, fights are only on the weekends, Friday and Saturday, so it's tough to make a full-time living off of that. And unless you're doing the real big shows, you don't make a ton of money. You do okay, but your big shows is where it's at, obviously, because of the TV and the pay-per-views and stuff like that. So that you get paid more, obviously, with those. Generally, the state is the one who dictates your pay. Not in all states, but majority of them, the states dictate what you make and what you don't make, regardless of who you are. The state regulates that stuff. As far as sponsors go, that's a real touchy subject, just because when the referee's got to be a neutral party, And if you're sponsored and there's another fighter that's sponsored by the same people, then now you've got a conflict of interest, and God forbid that there's a controversial call. Obviously, they'll point to that, and so as referees, we steer clear of sponsors and stuff like that.
Okay, and you say you make more for the bigger, big time events. Why is that?
Because of the number of people that are there, the TV. The events getting paid by the TV people. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And
so
again,
even if the state sets a bar, then they still will pay you more for the bigger events?
Yes.
Okay, very, very, very interesting there. If I may say so myself, what was my next question? I was going to say, how long did it take you? I was listening to Big John McCarthy talk about getting certified to be a mixed martial arts referee, and he was talking about how many amateur fights you had to do, and how many hours of this you had to do. How long did it take you to qualify to be a professional mixed martial arts referee?
It varies by state. Each state has different requirements. I didn't do my first professional bout until I think it was a little over a year that I had done amateur fights, and I don't know. It was in the hundreds of fights before I did a professional fight. And that's good because when you get in there with the professionals, I mean, that is their livelihood. I mean, that's their objective to get to the big show. And if you have a poor referee or even poor judges for that matter, and you can really negatively impact someone's career at that level. At the amateur level, I mean, yeah, you still don't want to mess up, but at the amateur level, their record goes to 0-0 when they turn pro, so they're not getting paid for it. So, it took me over a year before I got my opportunity to do my first professional bout, and then, like I said, I'm licensed in numerous states, so it kind of carries over, and they go with your certifications, and away you go.
Okay, and I think my last question concerning general refereeing. Does the organization ever cover your lodging expenses, and is there some type of stipend you get on top of your salary, or do you just have to take care of yourself coming to the event?
I would say the majority of the events that I do, the promotion does cover my travel, hotels, and stuff like that.
So they cover your travel and hotel?
Yep.
Okay, that's excellent. So wonderful. I thought they might have left you guys hanging. So whatever you make is basically your pocket money. So that's awesome. And how susceptible is your salary to taxes? Do they go pretty heavy on them, or what does that look like?
Just like anything else. I mean, you got to claim them at the end of the year because the promoters in the states don't take out taxes. Mm-hmm. So you just got to keep all your records, and then I have an accountant that does mine, and so they separate them out and do whatever they have to do, and go from there.
Okay, all right, excellent. Now let's get into this Tim Hague situation. Tim Hague was a very experienced mixed martial artist with a record of 21-13. I don't remember any of Tim Hague's fights for real in the UFC. I do remember the name though. But Hague was in a fight with a guy, a Canadian, former Canadian footballer, Adam Braidwood, heavyweight fight, and he was pretty much dominated until he was knocked out cold. Head hit the mat, and watching the fight, I was more disturbed than I thought I would be coming into it. I watched the fight. I think it's about 8 minutes long on YouTube. Tim Hague had a record of 1-2 coming into this fight against Adam Braidwood, but he was knocked down 3 times in a round. against Breadwood in a heavyweight fight. The fight wasn't stopped. Now, I thought that the rule was 3 knockdowns in a round and the fight is over. But this is not the rule. I looked at the Edmonton Combative Sports Commission, who was managing the contest, and they go by the Association of Boxing Commission rules. That's who they abide by unless they make another stipulation. And according to the Association of Boxing Commissions, there is no 3 knockdown rule in a round. And I don't understand why that would be. Can you tell now? Boxing refereeing have you ever refereed a boxing match?
I've never done a boxing match. I've done kickboxing, done Muay Thai and that stuff, and but never just a straight boxing match.
Okay.
But the 3 knockdown rule, I believe, is just like in MMA. You know, it differs by state and by commission, and some states absolutely use the 3 knockdown rule. For whatever reason, they didn't use it in Canada that night.
Yeah, because of the associate. Now, I don't know if the ABC sanctions a lot. I don't know what their range of fights is from state to state because this is boxing. I do mixed martial arts. But
real quick, the ABC is the same body that kind of oversees more or less the rules and stuff like that for MMA. It's the same group. The problem is they can suggest things, but it's up to the individual states to do whatever they want to do. The ABC has unified rules like in MMA right now. They passed the 4 new rules last year. Not all the states use the new rules. So it's up to the states, the individual states, to decide what they're going to implement and what they're going to utilize in their state. And that's the reason why in some, like, I would almost guarantee Nevada uses a 3 knockdown rule. I don't follow boxing a ton, but I'm almost positive I've never seen a Vegas fight that the 3 knockdown rule is not in effect. So I think that was just something that commission elected not to use that night.
Right. Well, according to ABC rules, they don't use the 3 knockdown rule. They don't use a standing 8 count. So I guess they count to 10. And the fight is over. I didn't know that there was this much of a difference between boxing commissions. I thought that they kept it pretty, consistent throughout. But watching the Tim Hague fight, he was knocked down 3 times. And this is heavyweight boxing. This is serious stuff. Getting knocked down is not a joke. He got knocked down 3 times in a round. In any other state, the fight is over. And Mr. Hague probably goes home with, if he has any brain injuries, much less of a serious brain injury, because in the next round, he was knocked down multiple, I think 1 or 2 more times, and then knocked flat out cold. And if you were reffing a heavyweight box, have you watched the fight?
I actually did watch the fight.
How did you feel about the referee's discretion during the fight, the cornerman's discretion during the fight? Do you think that either side was irresponsible? I personally think that with that many knockdowns and the way that he wasn't able to defend himself, I think that fight should have been stopped in the first round for sure after the 3rd knockdown, even if it's not a rule. But how do you feel about it?
Sure, and of course these are just my opinions on it. I haven't spoke to that referee to see what he saw or anything, but I'll go back to, I guess, even before the fight. It's the promoter and the matchmaker's job to make sure that the fights are evenly matched, or as evenly on paper that they can be matched. Once they sign off of them, then it goes to the athletic commission, who then signs off on the matches. I don't know that process in Canada. I don't know what happened on it. I can just say that someone with MMA experience does not mean that it translates into boxing experience. And vice versa, boxing into MMA. That match, right out of the gate, totally looked like a mismatch. Tim, the defense he was using multiple times is he would cover up and he would bend over and bend down. As a referee, that's something that I would be alerted to, that maybe he doesn't need to be in the ring that night. Maybe there's something else going on. But that's not an intelligent defense. in any gym anywhere that nobody teaches to bend over and cover up in a boxing fight. So that alarmed me. His knockdowns alarmed me to the point where, I don't know that. Again, it's easy for me to second guess it, but there's no way that fight continues after the first round if I'm in there. One, because of the way he's defending. Two, he gets knocked down 3 times. It just looked like a mismatch. It looked like, maybe on another night it would have been different, but for whatever reason that night it was not going to be different. And as a referee, our job is fighter safety. So, that's what we got to be concerned with. I go into the cage like I tell everybody, it doesn't matter to me who wins or loses. I've got no skin in the game. My only job and responsibility is to make sure that the fighters are safe and they exit that cage the best possible shape that they can. And it bothered me because I absolutely would have stopped it in the first round. Now, I don't know when Tim took the damage. I don't know. He had been knocked out a couple of months before, if you go back and look at it. And then I think the stat said 2 out of his last 4 MMA fights he's been knocked out.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what kind of suspensions he had. I don't know any of that stuff either. But that's not a good pattern, obviously, especially with a heavyweight, because, like you said,
he was knocked out. He was knocked out 6 months before by Maldin-Miljosh on December 2nd, 2016. But that like I said, man, heavyweight knockouts are a different animal. That is absolutely no joke. Taking big time heavyweight blows, he was taking good shots, and it's just. I hate boxing stoppages a lot of times. I hated the Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev stoppage. I thought that was... What did you think of that stoppage? So did you think that was premature? Did you think it was warranted? I thought shots to the body, he should have been giving an 8 count, and then the fight should have continued. I don't like when referees in boxing, especially when, the favorite is losing, and then he gets a little bit ahead and they jump in and stop the fight. I don't like that at all. It hurts the sport. But, this was, like you said, it was an absolute bitch match, an absolute thrashing from the beginning. And in comparison to the Ward-Kovalev stoppage, what do you think? Do you think there's a comparison, if you even saw that fight?
I don't think it's a comparison. I think in the Hague fight, that was absolutely a fighter safety issue. He didn't, and again, these are my opinions, but it didn't appear that he belonged in that ring that night for whatever reason. It just, the way he was defending. Me personally, if he defended that away one time, I would have warned him very verbally. I would have made sure he understood that wasn't okay and that I was going to stop it if he did it again. I guess I would translate that to in an MMA fight, a fighter getting punched in the face and then turning their back from them. You can't do that. That's not intelligently defending yourself, and I would stop a fight for that as well. So, the Ward fight, I think those shots they appeared to me to be legal. I know that there's a lot of controversy on it, and I also believe that it was stopped at the right time. But that's
you do?
I do, and that's just my opinion.
Now, why is that?
I think the damage was there, and I think that it was clear that it had taken its effect. Now, he says that they were low blows, but the way his trunks were pulled up and bent over and stuff like that, I don't think they were illegal shots. And I'd heard that the referee came out actually and said they were illegal and that he made a mistake. And then the athletic commission in Nevada came out after that and said that he made the right call and the shots were not illegal. So I don't know what in the heck's going on. You got the ref saying it was illegal, and you got the commission then coming in and saying, no, it's not. So I heard that today. So
the reason I hate that is because I thought Kovalev would have fought on fine for the rest of the fight. He got hurt to the body. He went down, which is an intelligent way to recover, is to take your 8 seconds or so, get back up, and then continue to fight. It's a strategy a lot. I heard Keith Thurman talking about that. You might get hurt in the fight, take your 8 seconds, take the knockdown, and then back to work. Take your rest period. which you don't have the benefit of in mixed martial arts.
Right.
Take your, but he gets knocked down and they stop the fight. I mean, why? What's the point? What would be the reason why he wouldn't?
For that, I mean, you would need to contact Tony Weeks, who was the referee, and to see what he saw. I mean, I don't know what he saw and what he, the benefit that a referee has, and you'll hear all the high level referees say it as well, is I can see their eyes, I can see the way they're breathing, I can see everything about them, within inches. Whereas on the TV and in the crowd, you can't see those things. You can see when a fighter is done, you can see that. And they may not, in the MMA, they may not tap out because they want to save face or whatever. But as a referee, you can absolutely tell when they're done. And and then there again, then it's up to you to get in there and rescue them and save them. I don't know what that referee saw, but I do believe those shots were correct. And I think it was a good stoppage. But that, again, that's just my opinion. That and 50 cents will get you a Diet Coke somewhere.
So in the light of this Tim Hague situation, do you believe that there, in any fight situation, that if the ref is missing something, that there should be some type of second opinion? Because there's a lot on the line in these fights. In the Tim Hague situation, he was actually a late notice replacement. So he was just filling in. He had actually retired from mixed martial arts. He was just trying to fill out the card. Do you believe that there should be some type of way that if a ref makes a decision and that there should be some type of secondary opinion to prevent maybe fixed fights or fights where the ref is absolutely demonstrating bias? Or do you believe that the referee should be sovereign in decisions? Because I know I've seen some bad stoppages, and I wished there was somebody on the outside who could say no, let the fight continue or whatever. But what do you think of stoppages? How they're handled? Do you think there should be some type of alternative procedure developed for stoppages? Because in the Tim Hague situation, maybe somebody needed to step in and say, enough is enough. It shouldn't look like that from a distance. I don't know what it looked like from the referee's standpoint, but how do you feel about that? Like, what do you think could be done to prevent situations like this in the future? Or have you ever had any thoughts about, how stoppages could possibly be handled better? What do you think of that?
Well, I think first and foremost, the only way to overcome any of these situations is to make sure that your judges and your referees are educated. They've been through the training. They've passed ABC courses. They've been to certified trainers courses, and they've been in the gym. They know what's going on. I do not think you can have a second opinion. I think that your referee that's assigned to the fight has to have the sole arbitrary they've got to be the one to make the call. You got a split second to make a call, and now with that being said, the referee does have the option to.
Hello?
Aussie fight that Dan Miragliotta missed, thought it was an illegal knee. He then wasn't quite sure, so he went out and pulled the other officials, and Big John had a better view of it and corrected it. But so we do have that option. But the other thing is once you stop a fight, there is no way in any circumstance that you should ever restart that fight, even if it's the wrong call.
Why is that?
Well, numerous
things. That's a lot of hard work down the drain there. That's months and months.
But if the decision's wrong, they have channels to appeal it and to go and get it overturned through the process with the commission. If you stop a fight and let's say you win the fight and I lost according to the referee, and then a minute and a half goes by and they're like, oh no, that was a bad stop. We're going to restart it. Well, now you're cooled off. I may or may not be cooled off. I come out and I knock you out, and that's not fair to you because you've already started your cool down. Your adrenaline's dropped. You've already come out of the fight mode, and now you got to be thrust right back into it. And you can ask any fighter that isn't something that is doable. I mean, when the fight's over, everything changes, and you cool down your mindset, and almost always whenever a referee restarts the fight, the complete opposite happens. And now you got a fighter that thought he won, now he lost, and now they're going to the commission. It's just a nightmare. So, the referees got to stick to their decision, be confident in their decision, and stick to it. And the way you alleviate mistakes is having, properly trained officials. So and there'll still be mistakes, but they'll be much more few and far between. But that's how you fix it, is the education of the officials.
Okay, I just think the moral story here is Tim Hague had a lot of fights under his belt. I think he was 21-13, so that's 34 mixed martial arts fight, in which 8 he was knocked out cold. He is a heavyweight, or he was TKO'd. In 2 of his 4 boxing fights, he was KO'd, TKO'd. The last one was fatal. I think there just could be a case of the accumulative damage over time, just, being natural, being beat in the head by, Adam Bray was an absolutely huge man, 254 pounds solid, 6'4". One of those punches is absolutely horrible to take. He took at least, looks like 5 or 6 flush blows that put him down, and the last one put him out, and that could absolutely result in a fatality, especially if, your adrenaline is rushing and it's keeping you going and you're not feeling the pain in the right way. You absolutely could have a death, especially in boxing, where you're given that recovery period and given the chance to come back out and take more serious blows to the head. So I don't necessarily think the ref was irresponsible in this case. Hague was jumping back up. He looked ready to go. He looked well conditioned. But man, was he severely outmatched. I guess better discretion could have been used, but that is the boxing game, I think. And that's the big difference between boxing and mixed martial arts, is when you're put down, you have multiple chances to get back up, and that could result in a fatality and has resulted in fatalities in the past. And I just think that's the risk you take when you get in a boxing ring. Wombacher, what do you think?
I think the risk is much, much greater in boxing because, like you said, they can get up. In MMA, you go down and you've got a split second to recover and get up, or the guy's going to be on top of you, hitting you, and the ref's going to stop it. So, in boxing, you get concussed and you get up before the 8 count, and it just continues. And it disturbed me on the Tim fight is when he got knocked out. His head hit that canvas like, I don't know that I've been in there for a lot of knockouts. A lot of just out cold, done. And man, if you rewatch that video, his head bounces off that
it was
canvas,
disturbing.
and as soon as I seen that, I thought he's in trouble. Not only is he taking a beating, but that he's in trouble, and he stayed down for a while, and then he actually walked out of the ring, and
right.
I remember watching it and thinking, man, we may have escaped a tragedy here. And then I heard that he, had a seizure in the back or whatever, and then didn't recover. But the way he hit his head, that was extremely disturbing.
Yeah, it was horrible. He was flush out cold and head hit the back of the mat and bounced. It was absolutely brutal. So, yeah, cumulative damage, big heavy. If that would have been a lighter weight contest, it probably wouldn't have been as. I don't even know if he would have got knocked out flush cold like that and hit his head, the back of his head, which is extraordinarily sensitive. Do you know anything about injuries to the back of the head? Can you kind of enlighten us on how serious those are? I know we don't know what the cause of death is exactly, but how serious could a blow to the back of the head be?
Well, the back of the head is not as protected, and it's right there, with the spinal cord, and any shot there could paralyze you or kill you, and that's the reason why it's illegal in MMA. You can't hit the the spine, and you can't hit the the back of the head in the mohawk area, because it is a more sensitive area, and that was bad, and and the thing people don't think about, I don't think, is you got a family grieving over the loss of him, and just the terrible situation. I believe he had a young kid as well. So I mean, just terrible. His opponent, he's going to be. I mean, that's going to take a lasting effect on him. The officials there that night, the referee. I mean, all those things. There were many lives affected by what happened there that night. And obviously the most would be Tim's family. They don't have him anymore, but a tragedy like that has such high impact on so many people, and it's devastating in our combat sports when something like that happens. And it's still a small community that we have. I mean, yeah, it's a big sport, but it's a very small community, and I had the opportunity to watch Tim fight in person, and I actually talked to Tim at a fight, and so it touches everybody, and it's just devastating in so many ways, and it's just part of the game. I mean, that's an inherent risk that all those athletes take that the people in the audience take for granted or don't even think about. But every time those athletes get in the cage or the ring, I mean, they've accepted those risks, but the risks are real. Just because those things don't happen because that often, because we got good officials and the athletes are trained well, and there's many reasons why it's not common, but man, that's a risk that every single one of those men and women that get in the cage or in the ring, they face that. And I've got so much respect for every one of those athletes that enter that cage, whether an amateur or a pro. When that cage door shuts, they've got my respect that they're even in there, because a lot of people in the audience, and you'll hear, oh, I could do that and I could do that. Well, then do it. Give it a shot. A lot of people, that liquid courage gets on them and they start talking, but not everybody can do what those athletes do, and it's just heartbreaking when something like this happens.
Yeah, and on average there are about 10, looks like 16 or so boxing deaths per year. Well, maybe that's just in Germany, so I don't know how many there are worldwide here. So it's not uncommon for boxers to die, just because it's just a brutal sport. The only end to the fight a lot of times is your will, and if you continue, there's only two tools to use, and there's only so many places on the body to be attacked: your head and your midsection. And so if you don't quit, you could very well be beaten to death after the effects of the adrenaline wears off. There are hundreds of accumulative blows thrown at a boxer throughout a fight. I mean, you could be really beaten to death. So I guess that's just what
I think it was the week before or 2 weeks before, there was a fight in Iowa, and the kid who won, his last name was Haro, I believe. He's from Utah, ironically enough, and his opponent was in a coma. I don't know that if he's still in a coma or if he came out of it. Obviously, if he would have passed away, it would have been big news. But just I think it was only a week before the Tim Hague situation, and I believe that was even it was a televised card, and and it was the main event, and so it seems to be, obviously it's much more common than in MMA, but it's a risk, and every one of those fighters have my respect.
Well, Mr. Wombacher, I think that covers all the bases here. Do you know about how many fighter deaths there are in mixed martial arts per year, or is it even a per year thing?
It's not a per year thing. I think there's only been 5 or 6 MMA deaths, and I don't know that
there's not even been that many in America, though. I don't think. I don't know how many of those are American. I know.
Those are all in America, but what's happened in a couple of them, it's been equipment issue, like they hit their head on the part of the cage and not the proper padding, so it's a straight shot to steel. Those types of things. So, again, it's the referee's responsibility before the fights begin. I get there an hour and a half beforehand, and I check out the cage. I check everything out. If something's not up to par, it's up to me to make sure the promoter gets it fixed before the first fight starts. But yeah, it's not even a comparison between MMA and boxing as far as deaths go.
And a question: what's the difference between? Because we talked about his head hitting the back of the mat. What have you noticed the difference between boxing canvases and MMA canvases? Or boxing canvases is a little more unforgiving, aren't there?
It depends on the promotion. Like the cages that I enter, the bigger promotions, like we'll just say the UFC when I did that, and the Bellators. Their canvases are much more soft and more forgiving than, say, a local show that's using vinyl and very thin padding. I mean, there is a dramatic difference between surfaces. So I would assume it'd be the same thing in boxing. It depends upon the promotion and what they're using, I guess.
All right, that's an excellent interview, Mr. Wombacher. Thank you for coming to the School of BlackNegroJitsu today and helping us out on our first episode here. Thanks a lot for the insight. It's always good to have professional insight, especially in light of this situation where you could have a bunch of amateurs like me and my co-host talking about it. It's great to have an experienced professional who's been in there, and although it wasn't boxing fights, definitely been in the middle of plenty of professional fighting action. Look to have you on more content in the future. But right now, I'm going to give you some time. If you'd like to promote any cause or anything that you do, go ahead right now and reach out to my listeners.
Absolutely. I do a lot of stuff with the Boys and Girls Clubs across the nation. I go into a city, a community, and get in the cage, and I try to parlay that with something in the community, doing something with the Boys and Girls Club. I also am a big supporter of helping out children with cancer, kind of being a part of their fight. And then I'm also an ambassador for the Fighting for Autism. All things that I'm passionate about and try to make an impact on, no matter what city I go to. You can follow me on my Facebook page. It's MMA referee Bobby Wombacher, and you can follow me on Instagram at referee_Bobby_Wombacher, and I constantly update those sorts of things, and I put pictures and stuff of the Boys and Girls Club visits and stuff like that, and those are all things I'm passionate about, and everybody should get behind those things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wombacher. Great friend of the podcast here, we out of here. Gotta give big ups to referee Bobby Wombacher for that interview. Friend of the podcast, met him in real life, great guy. But let's get into the interview now, or at least the Tim Hague situation. I wanted to know if you guys had watched the fight. What did you think of it? What did you think of the fact that he was knocked down 3 times in that first round? And if he would have been in Nevada or in another commission, the fight would have been stopped. That's not to say that he wouldn't have eventually succumbed to a brain injury in a later fight. But watching the fight, what were your thoughts and your feelings on it? Did you think that it went too long, or what did you feel about the whole situation?
After the third knockdown, I was wondering where Tim's corner was and where was the towel. Why didn't they throw in the towel at any point there?
Dave, how did you feel?
They could have stopped the fight.
Yeah, so I think there's a few factors, right, that play into this. I'm again in agreement with Mike, right? Where's the towel? Where's your corner in all this? I didn't get to watch the fight. I just read about it, and then I was some interesting points where he actually retired back in April, right? And I'm surprised he came back, right? So there's a portion where it's like, where does your ego get too large for you, right? Because his last fight, I read he was KO'd in 40 seconds. So he comes back in this fight, first and foremost is, I think it's ego, right? Like why do you even get up and take this fight? Then I think when you get knocked down in three times in the first round, I know there's no 3 knockdown rule, but the ref's got to step in or the corner's got to step in. Somebody's got to stop that fight, because at that point he's just a walking punching bag. Like I know the term, a puncher's shot, but at that point it didn't seem like he had a puncher's chance. It seemed like he was just a walking punching bag, and somebody had to stop that fight, and I don't know why no one did. So that was a little absurd.
Yeah, that's a heavyweight fight, and knockdowns are not the same as they would be in a lightweight fight. They were not to the body, they were to the head, and those are two very big men. Those shots are murderous, and as you saw when he went down, me and Bobby talked about it. I mean, his head hit
literally
the back of his back of his head hit the mat. It was absolutely ferocious finish on the part of Adam Braywood over Tim Hague. A terrible incident. I mean, by the rules of the ABC, what does ABC stand for? The Boxing Commission. I can't think of the first word. But there is no 3 knockdown rule or no standing 8 count. So there was no necessity to stop the fight after those 3 knockdowns in the first round. Absolutely one-sided fight. I don't usually like boxing stoppages. I did not like the stoppage in Ward versus Kovalev. I thought that it was premature and awkward as he was stopped to the body. I have not seen many fighters stopped to the body, referee stoppage or TKO'd to the body. I haven't ever seen that in my life. I'm not a huge boxing fan, but Ward versus Kovalev was extraordinarily interesting. I think this was a much different situation. I think this was the fight that should have been stopped. What do you guys think of the Ward versus Kovalev stoppage? Do you think that was premature or what?
I thought it was a great fight. I did think it was a premature stoppage. There were multiple low blows that occurred before Kovalev got shook by Ward's right hand. If you look at the replay, it was a questionable low blow followed up by a legitimate low blow, and the ref jumped in too soon. No standing 8 count. I was a little thrown off by that, and there was a lot of fight left in both fighters. You never want to see a fight end like that, and both guys wanted to continue competing. This is another situation, kind of like if we cross over back to the UFC, Kovalev looked like he was milking it a little bit, and it eventually ended up costing him in the long run. And he I believe could have continued fighting, but the ref just didn't give him a chance.
And I don't like those type of stoppages. I think that's what's wrong with boxing today, is when the referee is deciding when the fighter can't fight and not trying to see when he actually cannot go on. I do not like that aspect of boxing, but it is what it is. Unfortunate news. Matt Hughes, of course, was hit by a train, which is absolutely bizarre. But he was hit by a train, is in critical condition. I believe he's stable at this point. Our best thoughts go out to Matt Hughes at this point. Any of you guys thoughts on that?
Dave, you got a take on it?
I mean, I think it's just a freak accident. I mean, my thoughts and prayers, obviously, with him and his family. I also want to, say my condolences and thoughts and prayers with Tim Hague's family. But I mean, I'll best remember Matt Hughes for beating GSP right after that whole GSP divorce thing. So he seemed like, it was just like a blue collar guy who kind of beat what at one point in time it seemed like was like an invincible force. So I mean, all I could really say is I hope he gets better. I hope he gets better soon. And my thoughts and prayers are with his family, because that's just a freak accident.
One thing that stood out to me, I heard that he still hasn't regained consciousness yet, and that they're considering transporting him to a specialty facility for neural issues, which is very concerning.
I believe they already have. They did that today.
Wow.
They transported him to a specialty facility. He's good friends with one of my college roommate. They both Illinois-based wrestlers. So best wishes out to Matt Hughes. And that's the first episode of the School of BlackNegroJitsu. We're gonna be doing this weekly. We're gonna be going over general MMA topics. If you have anything that you'd like us to talk about on the School of BlackNegroJitsu, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at BlackNegroJitsu, at LeRoiStephon DFS, or go ahead and I think that's the only way we're gonna do it. Hit me up on Twitter, hit up Mike's MMA Picks on Twitter, or hit up Crisp Evolution. Okay, there we go. So yeah, that was the first edition of the School of BlackNegroJitsu. I hope that you enjoyed your first lesson here. And I know we ran a little long today. We might run as long. We're going to have lots of cool interviews, lots of cool features. So I don't know, man. We're gonna get something. If you don't like how long it runs, tell us about it. But I think that was a hell of a conversation. So thank you guys for tuning in. And thanks to the Loudmouth MMA Network for hosting us. And until next week, guys, peace out.